It is a politic that makes the immigrants that come to a country, it makes them like not to force them to learn the language, but they can adapt to the new environment, and so they can keep their own culture, but their own culture is like included in the already existent culture of the country.
From my perspective, multiculturalism is when multiple cultures come together in one nation or one society to form ironically enough, one megaculture that is assimilating multiple cultures to make one.
Like all the politics, like to help the new people to when they arrive in Canada, and I would say like it's the diversity in our society.
Well, it's a lot of stuff. Like here right now, we're in the Chinese, how do you call this?
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very important status for Canadians in general for immigration, because Montreal is like kind of has a lot of diversity to all cultures and all countries, as we are getting those 25,000 Syrians back in Canada. So I think that Canada's a great place for Montreal. Actually, is a great place for those kind of projects and helping other people, because Canada's been a country that's been giving help to other countries since ever.
Yeah. To answer that question, I do believe, as from what the city of Montreal and what is the history of Quebec, minorities are, as a matter of fact, very well welcome to Montreal or any cities in Quebec. Since for a very long time, the main population of this province has been a minority and has been degraded by a minority that took the majority of the province. But so the majority of this country was a minority for a very long time, and so we can understand us French Canadians that we have been a minority. We can understand other people who are nowadays considered minorities, that we understand their pain and everything, their worries and everything. We all understand that from our history, and therefore, yes, Montreal is a city that does welcome minorities.
Right, so if you compare like to the other areas like in Quebec, I would say Montreal, like we respect a lot the minorities in general. It's sure you can have more improvement, like there's still people who make some racist comments or stuff like this in the metro, on the road, or on the social media. So I would say it can be improved, but further we go in the time, I think the future generation way more accepted, like in comparison of like our parents or our grandparents. So yeah, I would say Montreal, they respect a lot the minorities.
Montreal's not a big it's not a big concern about being scared of other cultures.
Yes, I think so. Like I never had a problem making food.
Well, many people are afraid of multiculturalism because many people are afraid of what they don't know, and it's a common fear of the human that a stranger or just like a situation where you're not comfortable, you can have you can be scared. But in multiculturalism, I think the most scary part for the people is that they fear to lose their own identity. Like they fear an invasion of the immigrants. Like all the Muslim people that are coming to our country, they will transform Canada to Islamic Republic or something like that. I think that's the principal fear.
Is because in some sort of irony, they're afraid to lose themselves or get alienated over time by this huge flood of just these multiple cultures being put into one, and so they're afraid of losing themselves in that huge wave of culture.
They are afraid because they are scared to lose their own one or to modify their own one, and they're afraid to lose their identities.
I think it's just because they're afraid to discover something new.
Yeah, not only Montreal. Yeah, Montreal is a big, for sure, it's one of the biggest cities in Quebec. But Quebec just itself has a lot of resources towards the government for new immigrants. It's there's low mortgages. There's a lot of plans for kids that have been created for people who has a lot of kids. And when you immigrate here, you won't be. You always have some resources. You're in the street in Montreal here. You can have a job. You can have an apartment. It's a choice being in the street. Not always, but most of the times. It's a choice because you have a lot of resources that you could use in Quebec.
Hi, Mrs. Mode.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. My name is Mohammed. I'm a student in the Cégep André Laurando, majoring in social sciences. And we are having this project in English class that concerns multiculturalism, and we want to know what's your opinion on it. So first of all, are you comfortable with us filming you?
No problem.
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you for giving us this opportunity. Let's start with the first question. Let's start it off. Do you think that French people, French Montrealers are more welcoming towards immigrants than the rest of French Quebecers?
I believe so. I think that, well, it's a big generalization, of course, but I think that French Montrealers would be more welcoming with immigrants just because they live with more immigrants, and usually when you are intolerant, it's because you're ignorant. So you can sometimes make and often make a correlation here. So if you go to school, like in primary school, with people from everywhere, you build human relationships with them, friendships, and even you can fall in love with someone from another ethnic group. You get to see that they are humans just like you, and you tend to accept them more, as you can identify yourself more to them, and not see them like these weird people from somewhere I don't know of. But more and more they're getting more immigrants in the other parts of Quebec, so I guess it's starting to get better there too.
Yeah. All right, thank you. For the second question, do you think that there's a type of oppression that exists between ethnic groups in Canada and Montreal?
In Montreal,
Yeah.
yes, there is, of course. You can see, not all the time, but you can see that in schoolyards, people like children from different parts of the world that can live, they can have some hate for other ethnic group that they will have learned from their parents. So you see a Muslim and a Jew yelling at each other, that they hate each other because of where they're from, and they don't even know what the situation is. They don't even know what the fight is really all about. It's just that they're reproducing what their parents told them to like they taught them to hate each other. So I think it's the job of the teachers to teach them that they're not in Israel anymore. They're here in Montreal, and that there's no war here. There is no territorial war, and everybody can live together. So there is, but there also is a lot of good relationship going on too. Like if you go in primary school, I think you can all you can all see that too.
Yep. Thank you. Do you think that Canada is a cultural melting pot?
Or
A cultural melting pot or a cultural mosaic? Do you think that?
it's a good question. I see that you did your researches that on two different models of integration.
Yeah.
It's special in Canada because you have something like a cultural mosaic in Canada or in the rest of Canada, what we call rock. The rest of Canada is everything but Quebec. Okay, but in Quebec it's different. The melting pot the cultural mosaic is like the coexistence of different cultures, which they can express their identities and their differences. But when you go to in Quebec, it's different because it's kind of in between cultural mosaic and melting pot, because the melting pot means that you will assimilate the ethnic group in the majority, and just a law like the law 101, which oblige people to go to French school, is an assimilation law. You see, you don't have that in the rest of Canada. So in Quebec we have some assimilation laws, and we have some cultural mosaic laws also. Like in the United States, it's more melting pot. You need to become American right away.
Yeah.
And you would not see in the United States the government paying for cultural proudness, proudness, I don't think you can say that, but cultural manifestations like of, let's say, Colombians,
Okay,
or
yeah.
let's say Indians.
Yeah.
So they would not pay for demonstration of ethnic prideness. So we also have cultural mosaic.
All right. Thank you very much for this observation. Fourth question. Could you please define me what is multiculturalism?
So there's a distinction here in multiculturalism and interculturalism.
Okay.
Like multiculturalism would be different cultures, okay, living in the same country, okay, but it doesn't mean that they're gonna have relations between them. It's just they are in the same place at the same time. Multiculturalism doesn't mean or encourage that people are gonna share things or live together or just melt, and you know. So you need to push it forward a little bit if you want to. If you want it to work, it has to be more like to make interrelations between them.
Okay.
So lots of things can be done for that. I don't know, make a big karaoke with everybody singing for their country,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you know, there's a lot of activities to
Singing the national anthem.
exactly, and then vote for the best, and it's all fun together, or just make parties that or make workplaces that includes everyone needs, you know. But it's not that easy. It's not that easy.
All right, Mrs. Mo, this is the last question. Would you prefer Montreal to be multicultural or just a representation of one culture?
Definitely multicultural. What would I eat?
Yeah.
You know? No, I think multicultural is it's more rich. Of course, you can be interested by other cultures without losing your identity. It's totally possible. But anyway, it would not be possible to have representation of just one culture just because of globalization. it's there, you know. You can't ignore it, you can't stop it, it's there. And there's like two movements that are creating this. It's the medias, mass medias. Like the Americans export their mass medias in the world, but we get the medias from everywhere also. And the other big force is immigration, because before we had like, we think that now is a peak of immigration and that we never had so much immigrants, but it's false. We're under the historical average. It's just that before we used to receive like English, Christian, white people, so we would not see them, like they would, or French, so they would like melt right away in the culture. But it's because immigration policies were discriminating. They would refuse people from other countries because they say that they would not be able to adapt. But when, like in the 70s and in the 80s, it changed, and we started to have people from all over the world. So it's just the face of immigration that changed, not the number. Anyway, it's below average. So it's going to get more and more multicultural, and we just need to embrace it and just live with it and be curious about it and talk to people and make the human relationships, because it's hard for an immigrant to make friends here. Like not if you arrive when you're young in school, it's okay, but if you arrive later and you're already an adult, it's really hard to make a social connection with people.
Thank you a lot, Mrs. Mo, for your time and for giving us this opportunity, for your observation.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, we have learned a lot from what you just said, and thank you a lot for helping us.
Hope it will help you for your work.
Oh, it definitely will. Yeah.
Excellent.
No worries.
Good.
Thank you very much.
You're
Have a good
welcome.
day.